I'm Kris Goldsmith and I'm the CEO of Task Force Butler. In today's episode of Against All Enemies, I'm going to be telling you about Proud Boys and other American extremists and some of their worst behavior, stuff that's even more disgusting than what they're most infamous for. This particular Proud Boy that we're going to focus on is well known around Charlotte, North Carolina. We're highlighting him because he's the embodiment of why we need to get smart about America's white supremacist movement. There are three things that you need to know about today's white supremacists. One, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Because if their mouths are moving, they're probably lying to you. Two, every accusation is an admission. And three, today's white supremacist movements have more in common than you think. I'm going to tell you how throughout this video. Now, in Against All Enemies, we talk about a lot of disturbing elements of extremist groups. But today, I want to start out this with a content warning because we'll be talking throughout this episode about the history of several fascist organizations and their members committing sexual violence, including against children. This is heavy stuff, and we're discussing it because we want to help educate the American people on the many serious dangers posed by these fascist gangs. So first, we're going to talk about Michael Allen Jones. He's a veteran, and he was a disgrace to the uniform. His service career was cut short because he pled guilty to the charge of a crime against nature for having sex with a 15-year-old. That wasn't the only charge. Michael Allen Jones was found guilty of sexually assaulting two children, the 15-year-old and another who was only 14. Earlier this year, he was credibly accused by police of the rape of a 17-year-old who had been reported as missing by her family. He was 7 years older than that child at the time. According to the police incident report, the girl was described as developmentally delayed. This girl did not press charges, but she did describe on social media about her experience of almost being trafficked. Is anyone starting to see a pattern here? It's incredible that Michael Allen Jones was vetted and accepted by the Proud Boys, the base, and Patriot Front after he had already been convicted for sexually assaulting two children. And he apparently remained a member in good standing with the Proud Boys and Patriot Front after he was arrested for allegedly raping a third child. These groups have been desperate to retain some kind of post-January 6th relevance, and they're casting all over to build power. To do this, the Proud Boys and other fascist street gangs have decided that they are our self-appointed guardians of public morality. Recently, they've been showing up as muscle to Moms for Liberty events, but they've been on the QAnon Save the Children grift for years. Proud Boys have been showing up at drag queen story hours, at libraries, and at bookstores. They've been showing up at pride events and harassing transgender people. They've been physically intimidating and making loud, baseless accusations against the trans community. They're showing up and using violence and threats of violence to shut down businesses. Well, guess what? In America, using violence for political ends is the definition of domestic terrorism. The Proud Boys are domestic terrorists, and they're using protect the children as their excuse to harass and threaten queer people and trans people. This brings us to the first 2 points. When dealing with white supremacists and fascist gangs, one, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And two, every accusation is an admission. These fascist gangs, the Proud Boys, Patriot Front, the Base, they all have thorough vetting processes. They're trying to keep law enforcement and anti-fascist groups like Task Force Butler from infiltrating their ranks and exposing them from the inside. Michael Allen Jones was a member of all three of these groups. Hell, he was recruiting for the completely reprehensible neo-Nazi organization, the Base. During the period when he was active with Patriot Front, Jones also referred his Telegram followers to the Base. There are recordings of him recruiting for the Base and promoting the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. I know you've heard extremism experts talk about the Great Replacement conspiracy theory and how it was mainstreamed by people like Tucker Carlson and organizations like Fox News. So to recap, Michael Allen Jones was vetted by all three of those fascist groups. He was a member of Patriot Front when he allegedly raped and attempted to traffic a developmentally disabled 17-year-old girl. There's documentary evidence of chats between these group members to show that they knew what he had done, and the simplest Google search would have revealed his criminal record. The people who want to, quote, protect the children didn't hesitate to welcome him with open arms. And remember, these groups target veterans like Michael Allen Jones because of their training and their leadership skills. No one asked or investigated his separation from service, even though it was very short. If they did ask, they apparently didn't care that he was a convicted child predator. It's never about protecting the children. It's always about enacting violence and having power over you. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Every accusation is an admission. But I can hear people saying, sure, what he's done and been accused of is awful, but this is just one guy. With these groups, NSC 131, Proud Boys, Patriot Front, The Base, there's a long trail of prosecutions and credible accusations of rape, child molestation, and sexual exploitation of minors. Take, for example, Patriot Front member Jared Michael Boyce, who was arrested alongside Patriot Front's leader, Thomas Ryan Rousseau, and 29 other members for planning to riot against a pride event in Idaho. Boyce pled guilty this April to possession of child sexual abuse images. He also admitted to law enforcement having sexually themed conversations about children in an online chat room and sending images of child sexual abuse and sending sexually explicit photos of himself to a 16-year-old. Keep in mind that prior to pleading guilty to this reprehensible stuff, Jared Michael Boyce was most famous for choosing Patriot Front over his family when his mother gave him the ultimatum to choose. And she gave him that ultimatum because he had just been arrested for planning violence against the LGBTQ community. Then there's the National Socialist Club, Anti-Communist Action, otherwise known as NSC 131. They've had multiple members accused of and convicted for these kinds of abuses. NSC 131 is a New England-based neo-Nazi organization that Task Force Butler exposed in our latest report, Project Husky. Anti-fascist researchers revealed in 2021 that NSC 131 member Stephen Mark Van Zeist Jr. bragged to his neo-Nazi buddies that he had a history of grooming and sexual violence against underage girls. This NSC 131 member described in detail to his Nazi friends soliciting compromising photos from young girls and then sadistically manipulating them into self-harm. Another member of NSC 131, Andrew Scott Hazelton, who also claimed to have participated in January 6th insurrection with this Nazi group, was arrested in 2021 for having sexual communications with a 10-year-old. He's now serving 5 years in prison. Once again, all it takes is a simple Google search to see how these fascists and white supremacist organizations are shot through with sexual predators. And this brings us to the third thing that you need to know about today's white supremacists. They have more in common than you think. Michael Allen Jones is a case study in the Proud Boys to fascist pipeline. What does that mean? It means don't be confused by the power of whiteness and the fact that the Proud Boys admit persons of color. The Proud Boys are the top of the extremism funnel. They use their look. They use their manipulative membership strategy. They use their alliances with groups like Moms for Liberty and posturing on causes to distract from their agenda, bolstering a violent fascist worldview that only favors straight white men. At Task Force Butler, we've infiltrated these groups and monitored their communications. We've seen the discussions where folks from the most aggressive neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups like the Base join the Proud Boys to further radicalize Proud Boys into National Socialism, Nazism. These groups are an ecosystem unto themselves. Don't be distracted by the badges. They're individually branded hate products, but they're really just a distinction without a difference. Michael Allen Jones passed through all of these groups, and none of them cared about his public history of disgusting predation on women and children. He traveled through a range of hate groups looking for acceptance of his hatred, and he found the acceptance in all of them. He was looking for co-conspirators. We know from leaked chats and internal documents that Patriot Front trusted him to set up their radio communications and set the standard for the entire neo-Nazi organization. He wasn't just some rando hanging by the side of the pool. He was vetted, he was trusted, and he was empowered. When he was arrested in New York, Michael Allen Jones was heavily armed. He had accumulated the tools of destruction that went far beyond guns, and he was trained. The Proud Boys, Patriot Front, and the base all accepted a convicted child rapist. And he's not the only one of his ilk. None of this is acceptable. All of the Michael Allen Joneses of the world are why Task Force Butler and Against All Enemies exists. It's time for us to stand up and name the hate actors and for them to feel the white-hot light of public scrutiny. Task Force Butler is a group of veterans who raised our right hand because we believe in our American values. We have a message for the fascists. You can believe whatever you want. You have the freedom of association. And Task Force Butler is going to be there and let the world know who you really are. Against All Enemies is produced by Ken Harbaugh in partnership with Task Force Butler. Our team includes our producer, Michael L. Seltzer, and our volunteer members of Task Force Butler who provide much of the intel and analysis that we'll be bringing straight to you in this new show. Come back tomorrow for another Against All Enemies. Please like and subscribe the channel, share this video with 3 friends who care about our democracy, and check us out at taskforcebutler.org. See you soon.